terror group or not a terror group? That is the question. To proscribe or not to proscribe? Well, Hamas has been a designated terrorist organisation in all of its forms in this country for years. Yet a legal challenge has now been brought to change that designation. Why? Well, it apparently contravenes the European Convention of Human Rights for those that wish to support Hamas openly in the United Kingdom. Yes, I can't really understand that either. But this is GBN Originals. My name's Tom Harwood, and today we're discussing the curious case of those that want to change the terror status of a registered terrorist group. Yes, Hamas has been on that register as a terror group for years in this country. And of course, they have carried out internationally recognized terrorist acts, not least the 7th of October, where more than 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, many simply partygoers, were killed. Many more were kidnapped. Many were raped. And yet there are those in this country who want to say that the organisation that carried out these heinous acts should not be on that terror list, should be able to be freely supported in this country. Well, we sat down today with the former Home Secretary who carried out that final act of proscription for Hamas, including the political wing of the organisation. Dame Priti Patel is now the shadow Foreign Secretary, so oversees much of this brief too from the opposition benches. But as Home Secretary under Boris Johnson's government, she took that act of proscription, perhaps not a moment too soon. This is what she had to say.
Obviously a stain on our democracy and on our laws, when we all know that Hamas is backed by Iran. Hamas are a terrorist organisation. They've been proscribed for very good reasons. They're part of a murderous regime. They murder and torture and brutalise innocent civilians, and they are responsible for the atrocities that took place in Israel on the 7th of October 2 years ago. So this is simply unacceptable. What I think is quite extraordinary, Emily, though, we've heard nothing from the British government, nothing from the department that I used to lead, a department where I basically took a very bold step forward to proscribe Hamas in all its forms, because they are a threat to the security of our country, they're a threat to British citizens, British nationals, and also, as we can see, they're a threat to all nationals of peace-loving countries around the world, and those countries that stand up for Western values, freedom and democracy, free speech, and that is simply unacceptable. I think it is absolutely absurd that the so-called legal representatives representing this terrorist organisation are trying to pervert our own domestic laws to effectively unwind the prescription that I put in place, that was backed, by the way, by Parliament and backed by many of our allies around the world, our defence and security allies. And that is something that I expect this government should speak about and stand firm over.
This seems to be the strange thing here, that a legal firm in this country that seems to deal with asylum cases in its spare time is now using this appeals system against the will not only of the then Home Secretary, but also of Parliament itself. I mean, there is no higher law in the United Kingdom than a sovereign Parliament. When the Supreme Court tries to make decisions, they appeal to the will of Parliament, not the will of the government. Given that Parliament has backed this, how on earth is there anything to go on?
Have you been getting a load of spam in your email recently? What about random calls? It's really annoying, isn't it? Data brokers are out there collecting your personal information. Anything from your email, your full name, your address, and even your political affiliation. Cyber criminals can even use AI to mimic the voices of friends and family to trick people into sending them money. And it gets even worse. People out there are getting huge loans taken out in their names without even knowing about it. But don't worry, because the sponsor of this video, Incogni, can help. They reach out to the data brokers on your behalf and request that your information is removed from their databases. Incogni continues to make sure that your data is removed automatically from the internet via repeated removal requests. So, how can you get started? Well, step one, hit the link in the description, create an Incogni account and tell us whose data you'd like removed. Step 2, granting Cogni the right to work on your behalf. Step 3, sit back, relax, and watch Cogni work. They will update consistently so you know when your data has been removed. Incogni is risk-free for 30 days, so you can try it for yourself and you'll get a free refund if the service isn't for you. So take back your personal data today with Incogni. Use the code GBNews using the link in the description below and you'll get 60% off an annual payment plan.
So look, you've just asked a very important question. As you can imagine, I've got some very strong views on this. As Home Secretary, I put forward many laws, legislation on our statute books. I'm afraid not all governments have followed through on that legislation. But you've made a really important point. When I was Home Secretary, I constantly faced legal judgment by, quite frankly, left-wing lawyers. Lawyers, by the way, some of these organisations have supported Labour MPs and supported the Labour Party when it came to some of these asylum cases. I brought forward legislation which I think your viewers should be reminded of, which was stop the abuse of our immigration courts and tribunals, where we had so-called asylum seekers, i.e. people that came to our country illegally and had no legal basis to remain in our country. They would go to the immigration courts and tribunals again and again, basically trying to use the system to stay in our country. I brought forward laws to stop that, so we ended this merry-go-round. And now, of course, we've got the same lawyers, these so-called do-get-in lawyers, these lawyers basically on the left, who are basically on the side of people that come to our country illegally, break our laws, don't even abide by our laws, let alone follow the laws of our land and our country. These are legal representatives. I'm going to call them legal representatives. I think their own legal basis should be questioned. They are abusing our laws. They're effectively abusing the laws that they sign up to supporting through their legal practices. They're using laws now to basically poke their thumbs and noses at the British public and at the British legislators and say that, you know, they're supporting the most awful people that come to our country to do harm to our country.
I mean, we've seen so much abuse of the European Court of Human Rights, haven't we? Our human rights laws, whether it's defending foreign criminals in this country, preventing foreign criminals from being deported and the like. And now, apparently, these lawyers are going to be using the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that's in the European Court of Human Rights to try and defend Hamas in this country. I mean, is this a reason to get rid of these human rights laws?
Well, as you know, Emily, my party has very rightly said we're going to look at all of these options, and they're all options on the table. I think, first of all, let's just remember what Hamas are doing right now. They still hold captive 59 hostages. They are brutalizing them, they've terrorized them, their families are going through absolute pain and agony, not knowing where their loved ones are. And yet on the other hand, we've got these so-called lawyers basically now trying to circumnavigate and abuse our own laws and use the veil of the European Court of Human Rights, the European Convention of Human Rights, and dare I say it, free speech. What do these people know about free speech when Hamas is an organization that is terrorizing a population in Gaza, has abused people and the hostages that they have, you know, kidnapped? It just is an insult to absolutely everyone. And quite frankly, I think your viewers and the British people across our country will be horrified by this. But my party is not in power. The question is, what is this Labour government going to do about this? Because they are the ones
it is
that
important
have
what your
sided
party's
with, you know,
position is on these
They voted against all these laws before.
And so far, your position as a party is to look at the convention, but not necessarily withdraw from it.
Well, we've got to find the right ways in which we change our laws, and just to basically say we would leave or repeal, that's not a way forward without actually having the ability to say this is how we are going to do it. And as someone, Tom, let me just say this to you. I took forward some very difficult and challenging legislation on asylum and on illegal migrants that, by the way, everyone in the Labour Party, the very people that are now in government, they voted against it. And now guess what? They're all sitting there silently on this new challenge and on this new abuse to our domestic laws, and, you know, basically people that are undermining the security, the national security and the national interest of our country.
Well, what do you make of that? Should we be able to have a prescribed list of terror organisations in this country that the Home Secretary can settle on? Or does the free speech rights under the European Convention of Human Rights trumpet any right, go ahead of any ability of any government minister to say that some groups are terror groups and others aren't? And also, would there be a further moral hazard here? If Hamas was taken off the terror list, well, why wouldn't other terror groups be taken off that list? If the right to free speech trumpets the right of a government to say that some groups are beyond the pale, then surely that right to free speech would also extend to those who want to openly support Al-Qaeda, those who want to openly be members of ISIS. Would those free speech rights also not apply? Well, that is the danger of a case like this, were it ever to make it to court. Yet it does seem that that is unlikely, although as things stand, the government has not given us any comment on whether or not they'll be taking this appeal seriously. Big questions to answer and a case to follow. And you know the only way to follow all the twists and turns. Yes, do remember to click that big shining subscribe button below this video to stay up to date with all of this contentious news.